Hello everyone, welcome back to Chill Deal Trades, the most accurate stock market channel on YouTube. Today we're going to be covering Tesla stock because, boy oh boy, I think it's up 50% in 1 month, which is absolutely berserk. So we're going to dive into all the recent news over the last few weeks, and then look at the financials a little bit to figure out if this move is worth it, and then lastly look at the technicals. Couple things, guys. Remember, Monday, Wednesday, Friday videos. Friday specifically is a live stream at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. You guys aren't showing up. If you don't show up, I'm not going to do it. I'm literally there just to do all the technical analysis and all the fundamental analysis for you guys and with you to figure out where we can find good stocks. So far, the people who've come, we've actually had some good finds. You could be making money on some stocks that aren't so popular. I'll be covering new stocks I typically don't make videos on. So please come by. We cover a lot of great companies when people do show up. So come by this Friday. Don't forget it. But let's jump into things. So we're going to go through a ton of articles, but let's start here because all of them are pretty big. But the first one is Tesla's going to start selling home chargers that work for all EVs. This is a really big deal because one, Tesla, they have the social, people trust them essentially. So when you have a company that's big and really big in a certain industry, with Tesla's EV, people trust that company, which we're going to start seeing other people start to buy Tesla chargers for their non-Tesla vehicles. And there's two reasons this is important. One reason is this is more revenue for Tesla. And the second reason is people, when they buy these chargers, they're eventually, if they have the means, are going to buy a Tesla. And I guarantee you when Tesla comes out with a cheaper model, which is going to basically be affordable for any person in the US, not every person, but a lot of people at the price point, people are going to start buying Teslas if they have this Tesla charger. This is a gateway. Tesla's using this as a gateway to get, one, make more revenue. Two, because it's good. It's cool to have something Tesla. Tesla is the cool company. So you have a Tesla charger, you're cooler. Eventually, now that you have that Tesla charger for 2 years and you're thinking of getting a new car, guess what? You're going to get a Tesla to match your Tesla charger. It's marketing, guys. Don't underestimate what someone buying a Tesla charger and how that could eventually push them to buying a Tesla car. So that's a really big deal. The next thing is Tesla launches new solar roofing panels that higher efficiency. So this is a part of the business that honestly has been having some trouble for Tesla. It's growing, but not as drastically as their car sales. So making these improvements, a plane is going by. Having these improvements to their solar panels is really crucial. The next thing I really want to see is their prices come down, because what we know is Tesla's creating an ecosystem for a home. You have your battery for your wall that basically houses all your solar electricity that you get. You can, it powers your house, powers your car, powers your everything. So I think if one, efficiency going up is a big win, but next I really want to see the prices come down. If we see the prices come down, then we could really start seeing this part of the business explode. And when we really think about it, one thing we know is there's been an onslaught of new home buyers. And so as people buy new homes, a few years down the line, those people start to buy new things. They start to upgrade their homes. They do the initial, hey, let me fix this, let me update a bathroom. But eventually, 3, 5, 10 years down the line, they start thinking, oh, you know what? I want to start making bigger improvements in my home. Something like solar could be really big, especially if people are buying homes right now that have older roofs. In 10 years, if these prices come down, they're going to be purchasing these panels. So that's could be a big win, but we really want to see the prices come down. So Tesla, another thing, experimenting with opening superchargers to other EVs. So this is another big win. I don't think it has as much impact on the home chargers as people potentially buying Teslas. But again, you have to buy the electricity, more revenue for Tesla. This could be a win. We're going to want to pay attention to see how this experiment plays out to see, you know, how much potential additional revenue the company gets. Another big win, I mean, lots of big wins. You wonder why the stock is blasting off, because all this news is in the last couple weeks. Secures a lithium supplier. This is extremely huge because what we're seeing right now is we're seeing supply shortages, and we're seeing sales for a lot of companies slow down, where we're not seeing the same thing hit Tesla. And so them getting a new supplier for their lithium, for their batteries, is a really big win, and it will have impact, positive impact on them being able to sell more vehicles, as we're seeing demand still be pretty high for Teslas. Kind of in tune with that, Tesla's launching a finance leasing product to buy cars with zero down payment. This is a pretty big deal. Obviously, a couple things, you know, we made videos in the past on macro. We don't have Biden money anymore. You know, households with children are getting some Biden money, but everybody else, no more stimmy checks. And so people buying cars without having to put money down is a big win. For most people, they'll pay more money for a monthly. They'll pay more for a monthly if they don't got to put no money down. And so this could be a big win, especially as we see more vehicles come out for Tesla, their trucks, their cheaper price points. This could be a really big win for them in the long term. So we'll have to see on future calls if they kind of mention this at all. Let's get rid of that. You've probably heard this news by now, but there are some things about Hertz potentially buying 100K vehicles. Honestly, we don't know all the details on this still. It's still kind of like, are they really doing this? So we're going to keep an eye on this. This obviously pushed the stock higher, but if we get some news that it's not exactly what we thought, if they're buying 100,000 vehicles over 10 years or something like that, this could have a negative impact on the stock. But this is something we want to take a peek at to see how much impact it has on the stock. And lastly, Tesla Giga Shanghai expected to crush Q4 deliveries. We've had some slowdowns in the Chinese EV names for cars sold, and so we're gonna really want to see what happens with Tesla. If we see, you know, those numbers continue to crush, we're seeing that people in China really like Teslas more than they like the other local companies like NIO or XPEV, and that could be really big because in China, what they're doing is Teslas, you actually don't get EV credit in China. So if people are still willing to buy Teslas without getting credit, that shows so much demand in Asia, and that could continue to grow sales there significantly, which maybe their valuation should be up. You know, it should be much higher than we think. A couple other things really quickly, because I do want to get to the technicals, but you know, when we see this growth in the stock, you know, the stock price go crazy, like, well, how can this stock be going so high? And I just want to bring this one thing to you guys. When other companies are struggling right now in 2021 because of shortages, Tesla year-over-year revenue from 2020 to 2021 is 98% last quarter. That's insane. This quarter, a little bit lower, but still 60% growth when you have Ford growing at, I think it was like low single double digits, something like that. This is an extreme win. And when we look at their analysts' expectations, we look at 2021, 60% year-over-year growth in 2021. That is insane for a company this big to be growing that much. And then coming into 2022, slows down a little bit, but still 40% growth for a company this big is unheard of. You hardly ever have a company at this market cap seeing this much growth. And that's what people are buying into. That's why this stock goes up so much, is because people are buying into this crazy growth. So we really want to keep an eye on this kind of analyst expectations to see if they stick up with, if they stay up with these high growths moving into the future years. Before we get to the charts, the last thing we want to look at is institutions. So I always look at this. The big thing we want to call it here, we saw some decent selling in Q1, but we saw more buying, slightly more buying than selling. But now in Q3, we're seeing a lot more buying than selling. And so when we see the stock price go crazy, institutions bought on that big dip. When the stock pulled back to $600-700, institutions were buying at that price. Not a ton, you know, historically speaking, but still more than the last couple quarters. So with the feeding frenzy from everyday retail traders and institutions, it really does push this company much higher. So last thing, with a few minutes left, let's go ahead and get to the technicals. So the first thing I want to call out is do not buy right now. Do not buy. Tesla maybe has a chance to go up a couple hundred more bucks. Maybe, you can never really know exactly. But guys, when we look at the technicals, let's just look at some of the things we typically look at. RSI. RSI on the daily is at 93. I don't say never. Maybe 1% of companies that I look at reach an RSI of that high. I typically don't see higher than 90. Tesla again right here. 93. So we're at about all-time high on RSI. And it can't really go much higher. It's technically almost impossible for it to go much higher. And that's why I say after this big push higher, you maybe have a couple more $100 before it needs to take a little break. And when we look at the 20 moving averages, I always talk about it. Look how far we're away. The 20 EMA is at 950 and the I think this is right, and the moving average is at 900. So 900 and 950 are 20 days. At some point we have to pull back to those. Obviously these are crazy accelerating and they will continue to accelerate. But on a pullback, say these continue to accelerate over the next couple weeks, they'll probably get to around the 1,000 mark. And so I'm not telling you to short Tesla. This is a stock you have to be very wary about shorting. But if you're deciding to buy here, do not buy right now. I'm telling you, do not buy the stock. It's not worth it at this price point. There's too many red flags that are showing us we do need a little bit of a pullback. I don't know how much of a pullback. We'll have to see what the technicals say. We don't have a lot of data points to figure out how big the stock can pull back, but it is going to pull back. My expectation is probably around this 1,000, conservatively speaking. We just covered all this news of basically positive news for the last 3 or 4 weeks, if not longer. And so that's why we're seeing all this bullish momentum. But just wait till something not so great comes out. If that happens, people are going to offload because they've made so much. If someone bought this a month ago, they're up 50%. People are going to start taking their winnings a little bit. It's almost like a crypto, like a little crypto. It goes off crazy. It breaks out high. All the technicals are extremely overread. Once I get, oh, sneezes. But it's so overbought technically, and so it has to come down. I'm not even saying it needs to. It has to. Technically speaking, it has to come down. And so let's try to figure out, like I just mentioned, some of those price points it might come down to. So as I just mentioned a second ago, the 20 days on the daily, a couple things. One, gap right here. I don't like a huge gap, and when we zoom out, if this stock pulls back to this, say 1,000 to 1,050 range, if it doesn't hold that, there's nothing holding this from gapping down significantly. So on a pullback, if you're looking for a buy zone, if it does get down to this 1,000, let's just call it 1,050 to 1,000 a share, if it can't hold that, let's go even to the hourly, there's not a lot of support. We have a little bit at 950, but pretty much no support, which you can easily close this gap. A really interesting stat, I think it's 93% of gaps are filled for stocks, 93%. So there's a really, really high probability this gap is filled at some point. Who knows when that will be, but at some point it will. So assuming these moving averages, continue to move higher because of how much the stock has gone up, I'm assuming that they'll move somewhere in this 1,000 to 1,050 range, and that's a pullback I'll be looking for. Again, like I said, we maybe have a little bit more upside, $100-ish. It's probably not much more than that, and so I would not suggest buying at this point. I'm not your financial advisor, but I would not suggest it. And look, if you really like this stock, personally, if you're asking me, I'm not buying at these prices, but if you're looking for a buy price, there's this zone right here, 1,075 to 1,000. If it can't hold that, it's definitely coming back to this 900 to 950 range. So those are things you want to keep an eye on the big picture. When we look at big picture, big picture, we see a couple things. So we have a trend line here back from February 2020. And if we draw through some resistance, we just broke above it. So we had a blow off top. that blow off top is most likely going to be